You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 CBS Radio.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. You're listening to us on CBS radio station WJFK 1580 AM or on the web at WMClive.com, where you can also find podcasts of all our previous shows and links to us on iTunes. And we want to hear from you, so tweet me at hashtag WMCLive or email me at womensmediacenterlive@gmail.com. Today's show is very special. Once before, we took you inside the workings of the Women's Media Center. Listeners really liked it. They liked hearing from staff members of an organization dedicated to making women visible and powerful in the media. So, we're closing out our celebratory first year and the summer by doing that again, but different. This time, we'll be talking with the woman who trains our Progressive Women's Voices graduates on using media skillfully, and with the woman behind the woman who runs the place, and with the woman who is one of the partner project founders, a great organization, Sparks, and with the senior producer of this very show. But first, we need to go inside the headlines. In a sense, inside the headlines this week is literally how the headlines get built. UNESCO, the United Nations educational, social, and cultural organization, periodically issues updates in gender portrayal in media, gender portrayal in all sorts of aspects of society. But for our purposes, this is very interesting. These are gender-sensitive indicators for media as a framework for media to gauge sensitivity in media operations and content. And I'm just going to read sort of excerpts from two areas. This one, the critical area of concern, is coverage of gender-based violence. Indicators: use of non-judgmental language, distinguishing between consensual sexual activity and criminal acts, and taking care not to blame the victim or survivor for the crime. 2. Use of the term survivor rather than victim. 3. Identification of persons affected by gender-based violence as sources only with their evident consent. 4. Percentage of stories that 1. Invade privacy and or 2. Denigrate dignity of the violence-affected person on gender or sex lines. 5. Use of background information and statistics to present gender-based violence as a societal problem rather than as an individual personal tragedy, in other words, in context. 6. Inclusion of local contact information for support organizations and services available to persons affected by gender-based violence. 7. Proportion of time or space and prominence given to stories on gender-based violence in relation to other stories. Now, these are meant as guidelines primarily for the Global South, for emerging countries, developing countries, media organizations, unions, associations, clubs, organizations of journalists, media professionals, citizens media groups, and journalism schools. In developing countries, it makes you realize that, of course, the United States must be recategorized as a developing country because, wow, could we use this kind of sensitivity. That is from UNESCO, and I think if you write to the United Nations, you probably can get hold of a copy. It would be their Media Content Guidelines. Chris Jahnke is the president and founder of Positive Communications. She spent the past 20 years as a media trainer and speech coach. Washington, D.C. based, she prepped First Lady Michelle Obama for her International Olympic Committee speech. A political communications specialist, she has coached more women elected officials and candidates than any other trainer. She was an advisor to Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, and she is the media coach and trainer for the Women's Media Center Progressive Women's Voices program. Welcome, Chris, to Women's Media Center Live.
Well, thank you, Robin. It's a delight to join you today.
Let's talk about the Progressive Women's Voices program of the Women's Media Center, because it has got way, way better. It has bumped up. It was good before, but it has got really, really fantastic since you have been involved. And what is it you actually do during the training?
Well, Robin, first of all, let me say thank you for that compliment. Boy, that means a lot coming from you. I thank you. And I tell you, I could not be more thrilled being the speech coach and media trainer for the Women's Media Center. Because as you know so well, the center provides many specialized training programs, and really the premier training program is the Progressive Women's Voices and Progressive Girls' Voices. Mm-hmm. You know, and what we do is we get these women and girls, we get them media ready and media savvy so that they can be spokespeople on the airwaves, in print, on television, broadcast. Yeah, so they're ready to go.
It's such an incredibly crucial tool, these skills, because, for years the media had, first of all, they didn't have women, and they didn't even blink when we complained. But when they started to pay lip service to it, the first excuse was always, well, we can't find qualified fill in the blank. And now there's no excuse for that, because you help us make them qualified.
And your listeners know that, definitely. And I think, one of the most important roles that the Women's Media Center plays is expanding that talent pool. And just to give you a little bit of a flavor of that, the women who come to these trainings, we have business women, we have university professors, activists, social media experts, theologians, women in the media. Mm-hmm. They come from all walks of life.
Yes, and then we have the backup to funnel it out into the world through SheSource, which has become the go-to place now for producers and media sources to find. I want a woman expert to discuss thermonuclear power. Well, we have her. But the kind of skills that you coach on, and I know you coached Michelle Obama, and you've coached senators and major political figures as well. When you're dealing with quote unquote ordinary, which is a word that doesn't have any meaning, women who come to the Progressive Women's Voices program, what do you encounter most as the obstacles?
Yeah, and this is something I feel very strongly about because, like you, I'm just absolutely passionate about helping women move into leadership positions in business and government, in the nonprofit and charity and art sectors. And what I find is that we've really got to encourage women, number one, to find their voices, and then number two, use their voices. So in the training, we dive deep. We focus in on messaging, how to craft a message that is going to be attractive to reporters. And then two, how to present yourself with confidence, whether you're speaking on the radio, like we're doing now, or on television. I've been doing this media training for 20 years, and 20 years ago, not that many people went on camera, but now, in this YouTube universe, everybody's on camera. Mm-hmm. So we get right down to, how to sit, where to look, and what to do with your hands. Mm.
And sometimes, at least previously in the women's movement, there was a kind of, purism about, we don't want to learn those skills, or we don't want to wear a flattering scarf or something. That's beneath us. But it doesn't hurt. And the point is, if you want the message to get across, you want to do everything you possibly can in the service of that message.
Well, and that's exactly right. And we know from research that the Women's Media Center has done, and I do a lot of work with women who are candidates running for high office. Women in the public sphere are judged more harshly. And so what I coach women on, because I'm the same way as you, Robin, I don't wear that much makeup and I don't like to worry about my clothes. But what I suggest to my women is, let's eliminate distractions. Mm-hmm. Let's not allow them to comment on your hair or your jewelry or your neckline. Let's force them to focus on the message, the issues that you care about.
Yes. This dawned on me, just a personal story on presentation. This dawned on me sometime in the mid-'70s as we had really revved up to major organizing, and I found myself a spokesperson and an organizer after Atlantic City and Sisterhood is Powerful. And And I, was running around in my combat boots and my blue jeans and no makeup and
I bet you look good.
I better than I do now. Let me tell you. But I realized that as I began to speak more and more in the middle of the country, outside the coasts, I didn't want to offend women or put women off by my style. I wanted to reach women, so I began to drop my four-letter words, which at that point were peppering my speech, usually to prove I was tough enough for the leftist men. And I developed, semi-consciously, my own little uniform, which was nice boots. So I had a compromise going there, not combat boots, but nice boots, leather, pretty nice boots, and jeans, and silk shirts. And never any lipstick. I haven't been the lipstick type, but a little bit of eye makeup and a nice haircut. And that was my compromise with being presentable. And it worked because women, whether they were a Kansas housewife who was suspicious of these East Coast feminist liberals, or whether it was a street fighting woman in San Francisco, could identify with it.
Well, and I think that's a real smart approach, because what I try to impress upon the women that I'm working with is, if you're doing an interview or you're out there giving a speech, it's okay to think of it as a performance in the sense that you should have prepared and you should have rehearsed, but there's a difference between a performance and play acting.
Uh-huh.
It's not play acting. So always, at its core, you want to be yourself. And so the idea, whatever you're doing with your hair or your clothing, at the end of the day, I always want my clients, I want them to know for sure that their true personality is what's most important, and we always want that to shine through.
This is interesting. Tell me a little bit about Chris Jahnke. How did you get into this and become so skilled yourself, and then want to share those skills?
Well, I tell you, my very first job after graduating with a degree in journalism was as the weekend weather girl. I'm from Minnesota, and I wanted to be Mary Richards at WMC.
Naturally.
But I tell you what, it was the most horrifying experience of my life because I was so nervous. I mean, I always say I'm so glad the camera cut me off at about waist level because my knees were literally knocking together. So that gives me great empathy for others, and that's most people who are nervous, are experiencing stage fright. So that's how I got started in the whole media game. But I've been doing this media training now for 20 years, and I'm based in Washington, D.C. So I've been a reporter, been a press secretary, kind of in front of the camera, behind the camera, but always involved in the media in some way.
You were an advisor to Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign.
And we learned a lot about how voters feel about women candidates. And the thing that I think that candidate Clinton never got credit for was her sterling performances in the debates.
Oh, wasn't she brilliant?
Yeah, never made a mistake. And did the press ever give her credit for it?
No.
Yeah.
I know. If that was partly your doing, and wow, huzza, congratulations! Because not only was she prepared, but she was prepared for the unpreparable for. If that makes any sense. I mean, when it was the whole "you're likable, you're not likable," to which she responded with humor and grace. I was blown away by that performance and throughout the debates. So if you had anything to do with that, wow.
Well, I can't take any personal credit because I was, a small part of a much bigger team. But yeah, and I always suggest, because one of the things historically that, we've been lacking is women public speaker role models. Mm-hmm. So Hillary Clinton obviously is an excellent role model. The current First Lady, Michelle Obama, is also an excellent speaker. Mm-hmm. So to go online, and I'm sure most of your listeners are familiar with the website TED Talks, there's so many fascinating women who are on that website, and you can watch them. And one of the things I love about TED Talks is they have a transcript of the remarks, so you can read along. It's a great way to pick up new ideas.
Yes. Yeah,
because we need role models.
We do. And we've only got about another minute left, but tell a little bit, if you can, about what it was like to prep Michelle Obama for her International Olympic Committee speech.
Oh, it was a wonderful experience, as you can imagine. We were in Copenhagen, Denmark, and many people ask me, the First Lady, gosh, she's such a wonderful speaker. Why would she need speech coaching? Well, it was her first talk to an international live television audience. Yeah, and she was going to be using teleprompter, and she hadn't done much with teleprompter, so she just, like any professional, wanted to be ready to go. There's a little bit of a myth out there. Many people think the speakers who are really good, they were born with the talent. Farthest thing from the truth. And you know that, Robin, as someone who's been in the media for many years. Those who are the best work hardest at it over time.
And continue to do so.
That's exactly right.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Chris, for working with Women's Media Center, and thank you for being with us today on Women's Media Center Live.
It's been a great pleasure to join you, Robin. Thank you so much.
We'll take a break here. This is Women's Media Center Live, and I'm Robin Morgan. And coming up is a talk with the woman across whose desk everything about the Women's Media Center flows. She is the executive assistant to the president. You want to keep her your friend. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 CBS Radio.
Welcome back. Our next guest, Sayda Zelaya, before she came to the Women's Media Center, worked on employment rights with the Service Employees International Union. She was a field organizer, directing and organizing food service workers in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. She trained union members on their employment rights. Later on, she worked closely with the Director of Language Access of the OHR Language Access Program to provide policy solutions and to tailor existing measures to ensure that government agencies met the requirements as outlined in the Language Access Act of 2004. She still works with immigrant Spanish-speaking communities by providing them with resources that will ensure that they receive quality services. And welcome, Sayda, to Women's Media Center Live.
Hi, Robin. Thank you for having me today.
Well, let's start in by talking about the fact that you're the newest member of the team, so you can give us a perspective on what it's like to hit the ground running and come into this bustle of activity. Were you breathtaken?
Well, I think that you described it perfectly well. I literally did hit the ground running, and I wasn't expecting it, but I think that me as a person, I work better that way. I'm not the type of person that takes my time and walks. I think that if I am constantly being introduced to new things and have to do it in a short time span, I don't know why, but I think I perform better, so I think it's only fitting that I'm here now. Well,
welcome to my world and to that of the Women's Media Center, because if anything can be said of us all in common, it's works well under pressure.
Right.
And it's just as well that we do. Your official title is Executive Assistant to the President, to our terrific Julie Burton. And I know it's a very eclectic portfolio that you have. So let our listeners in a little bit on the kind of variegated things that you do.
Wow, I don't even know where to begin. Anything that Julie needs assistance on, I am there. If she needs me to go run and get something, I will do that for her. If she has me looking up different organizations or learning about women's rights or assisting things that will make her life easier, then I am that person for her. And so it's been really exciting because there's certain things that maybe I just didn't know how to do before, and now I'm learning, and I love to learn, so it's been great.
Well, just even of the little things that I've glimpsed in the short time that you've been there, you have begun. I think this is so exciting. You've begun translating the various Women's Media Center reports and brochures into Spanish.
Right.
That's in your spare time, and that gladdens my heart. You saw to it that we were all made comfortable and kept fed very luxuriously at the board meeting, which went on and on and on. So we would have expired without your nurturance. You've been involved in the various online campaigns, the one for a woman to head the FCC, various other things. So it is a across the board, 24/7 kind of job, isn't it?
It is, and it's different every day, and I think that's what intrigued me about the job. So, yeah, I'm excited, and I'm really excited to be spearheading the translation of these documents, because I think that we need a broader audience in terms of the Hispanic community.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm speaking to the Hispanic community and I tell them who I work for, they love it. Anybody in general just is very intrigued about Women's Media Center, but I think that it would be great to have, more Latinos on board. So
absolutely. Well, and because this is becoming a bilingual country, and the fastest growing population are the Latino and Latina populations.
Absolutely.
So it's in everybody's self-interest. So tell us a little bit about who you are and who you were even before you came to the Women's Media Center. What were you doing, and a little bit about your own background, because I find it a very interesting background.
Oh, sure. Well, I was born in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, and I moved here when I was about 6 years old because my mom didn't want us to live in Honduras anymore. I was getting, she didn't think that we would have a future in Honduras. And so we moved here, and I grew up and was raised in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Yeah, second biggest steel company at the time when they had opened. And I went to school there. I went to Moravian College, graduated with a political science degree, and by the time I had graduated, I told my mom that I was moving to Washington, D.C., and she didn't really like that at first.
I bet.
Yeah, and so I guess I had applied to become an AmeriCorps member to work with higher achievement in Washington, D.C., and surprisingly, when I told my mom that I was leaving and that I had already started looking for places, she was very supportive. And she said, I think that this is your time to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that for a year. And then after I left, I wanted to continue working in Washington, D.C., and so I got hired as an intern to work at the Office of Human Rights for D.C., and I was working under the Language Access Program, doing policy development work. And so after that, they kind of hired me as a contractor, and I did that for another 3 more months. And all of a sudden, I was online, and a friend of mine sent me a job listing for the executive assistant position to Julie Burton. And so once I had read about Julie Burton, I had to jump on that opportunity. So.
She's fun. One of the things that I am so pleased about, that it's really an honor to be a part of as a founder, is that the staff family. It's a real concept of a family. I mean, and it's very helpful, because when you have to keep the long hours that we all keep and respond with our rapid response system to this sexist remark or to that news break or to some crisis, you need the feeling of support of a family.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of laughter in that office, and a lot of birthdays being celebrated, and probably eventually it will get to the point that it used to be at Ms. Magazine, where we all had our menstrual cycle pretty much at the same time. We were in sync somehow. We were in amazing
It's
sync.
bound to happen.
It's bound to happen. Well, we're very glad to have you with us, and it's going to be amazing to see you bring the skills you already have to the job, and then add to those additional ones that you pick up. On this episode of Women's Media Center Live, we're talking with Michelle Kinsey-Bruns, who is, of course, the online manager, and Cristal Williams Chancellor, who is the media manager, and both of them also work with me on the radio project. And then Chris Jahnke, who does the media training. And so with you now on board, and with our previous Inside the Women's Media Center program, we've had the entire staff on board and online and on air. And I take real pleasure in that. And so do the listeners, because they want to know who you all are.
It's a great list. It's a great list of women that I'm working with, and I feel so honored and privileged to be working alongside them. Honestly, I learn things from them every day, and I'm inspired. So it's great to be here.
Well, and also I have to say this, Sayda, the first time that I met you, which was on Skype, before I got to meet you in person, I went away muttering to myself, if one more person ever says to me, by now, after 45 years of organizing as a feminist, that feminists are just ugly women who are discontent and so forth, and got one glance of your face, listeners, she is just simply one of the most beautiful faces I have ever encountered, sort of that of a pre-Raphaelite angel in a painting, as well as no, seriously, I mean, as well as a really lovely interior. So take that, sexist, stupid people.
Yeah, because you know what? They're not all ugly. They're beautiful. They're beautiful women.
Yeah.
They're just intimidated.
Yeah.
So of course they have to resort to those nasty comments.
Yes, well, and it's any chance to bash a feminist, it's always always open season. Well, thank you so much for doing this, and we'll revisit you in 6 or 8 months and see whether you're walking into walls with exhaustion, or whether you're still vertical. But we certainly we're very glad to have you on board, and I'm very glad to have you do the show. Thanks so much, Sayda.
Thank you so much, Robin.
Time for another brief pause. This is Women's Media Center Live, and I am still Robin Morgan. Now, the Women's Media Center sometimes partners with other groups to accomplish certain specific, quite remarkable projects. And our next guest is the founder of one such group. You don't want to miss this.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 CBS Radio.
And here we are again. Before our next guest, though, we're going to make a brief side visit to the Surrealism Corner. Now, the Surrealism Corner today is one that you shouldn't enter if you've had your share of indignation up to here and don't have any room for any more today. On the other hand, if you're feeling a little sluggish and you want to get your blood racing, come with me. A Republican super PAC called the HillaryProject.com is pretending that it's a grassroots project of just ordinary folks, except it's run by an anti-Hillary Clinton group that lists Christopher Marson, who's a Republican campaign consultant and a former member of the Bush administration, as its treasurer, because they have so much money they can afford to have a treasurer. So this HillaryProject.com has one mission in life. They make it very clear. It is to declare a war on Hillary Clinton and her campaign for president, which of course hasn't been declared yet, but never mind. And if you click on games on the home site, it will take you to a specially constructed game called the Slap Hillary game. They are sending emails to all sorts of people to get them to come to the site, and the emails ask, "Have you slapped Hillary yet today?" On the site, there's a line that reads, "Slap Hillary for real by signing the petition to stop her from running for president." And meanwhile, the cartoon hand socks her in the jaw, socks the cartoon figure in the jaw repeatedly. This is obscene. This is not funny. This doesn't belong in the political realm. And in a country where violence is, particularly against women, is on the rampage, and in a world where violence against women is epidemic, this is appalling. I don't know what to suggest we do about it. I had one fantasy that at a certain time we would all agree on. We would all log on to their site, so many of us that we would crash it. But then they'll just get it up and running again. So if anybody has any creative ideas of what to do about this, other than denounce it, and yet not give it too much publicity, I would love to hear from you. Remember you can text me, rather you can tweet me at hashtag WMC Live, or you can email me at womensmediacenterlive@gmail.com. We have to do something about this. And now, deep breath to our next guest. Deb Tolman is a developmental psychologist and the co-founder of Spark, which we'll talk about in a minute. She's also the author of Dilemmas of Desire, Teenage Girls Talk About Sexuality, which was awarded the 2003 Distinguished Book Award from the Association for Women in Psychology. She's currently a professor of social welfare and psychology at the Hunter College School of Social Work and the Graduate Center of CUNY, and her research on adolescent sexuality and gender development and gender equity has been lauded all over the place, as it deserves. And Spark is a partner of the Women's Media Center. Welcome, Deb, to Women's Media Center Live.
Thank you for having me, Robin.
Well, it's lovely to have you here as a partner of the Women's Media Center on the front of girls. You are one of the co-founders, in addition to everything else you do, and being a professor of social welfare and psychology and a book writer and stuff. But in addition, you are a co-founder of Spark, which stands for Sexualization, Protest, Action, Resistance, and Knowledge. What's not to love about that? Tell us about Spark and about how it came to be and how it came to be a partner with the Women's Media Center.
Well, let me tell you the history of Spark, Robin, because it actually has been a very organic developing organizations, not a word we particularly like to use. Movement is a word now that everybody is using, but something in between. In 2007, the American Psychological Association published the report of a task force on the sexualization of girls, of which I was a member. There were 6 of us, where we evaluated everything that we know in psychology about the sexualization of girls and its impacts and how it operates, etc. In that report were several recommendations, and one of those recommendations was raising awareness about sexualization. Now, this was in 2007, which is now 6 years ago, and if you roll it back 6 years, the extent to which we are now talking about and recognizing sexualization really wasn't the case at that time. Really wasn't at all. And in fact, I think it's at least in part one of the successes of this report and one of the successes of Spark, that people are now really talking and thinking about sexualization not only at Halloween.
Exactly.
And that Halloween moment really was very inspirational for getting a summit off the ground. So one of the responses to the raising awareness idea was, and I started kicking this around with various people, there's a history there, we need to have some kind of a summit to begin to raise awareness. And was having this conversation with one of my dearest friends from graduate school, Lynn Michael Brown, who started telling me about some of the work she was doing, trying to bring together grassroots organizations, smaller organizations, to try to figure out how to work more collectively to have some broader impact. And she was really excited about the summit idea, too. So we got together and started thinking about some of the different dimensions of a summit that would go beyond academia. Both of us have been very committed to our work, leaping out of the ivory tower and feeling that the nature of what we did really, we were obligated not to sit comfortably in that jargon-filled place. And so we identified a couple of different arenas that we thought would be important to incorporate, and one of them, obviously, was the media, and in particular, a feminist perspective on the media. And immediately, the Women's Media Center came to light. And it came to light through a conversation with Carol Jenkins.
Wonderful.
Whom I knew and saw at an event and told her about this. And she said, you must speak to the Women's Media Center immediately.
Well, she was our founding president.
She was, and within 5 days, we were sitting in a room with the Women's Media Center.
Right.
And several other partners as well. There were 6 in total, including the Ms. Foundation and a number of other groups and organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided that we should have a convening. This shouldn't be our private idea. We invited 30 different members to come to a convening from across media, policy, research, and community-based activism. Everybody we invited showed up, and together we generated this summit. And one of the key ideas that came out of this generation was that the summit needed to be not about girls, but for girls and women together. So from the very beginning, the notion of girls and women learning together, working together, thinking together, talking together has been at the very heart of Spark.
One of the things I love about Spark is your stated aim to offer an alternative to the divisive wave metaphor that is been bruited about feminism. This wave and that wave, all of which is completely fantastical and made up. I mean, we're one long tsunami, or else we're the 10,000th wave, but we're certainly not the second or third.
Well, for a long time as an academic, the wave of the waves has been very troubling to me. But even more so when we started doing this work. And so instead of kind of agonizing and hand-wringing, which happens so much, as you know, we just did stuff and do stuff. And that has really embodied the reality that women and girls can and do work together very, very well, and that women across generations work together very, very well.
That's right. It's such vital work. It really is, because I remember when the John Benet Ramsey case hit the press, hit the headlines. I can't even remember how long ago that was, but the little girl who was found murdered, and they're never sure, in fact, who did it yet, whether it was a family member or not. It was the Colorado case. But what came to light was the way that, talk about being sexualized. She had been in child beauty pageants, and this whole world of child beauty pageants in which they weren't just beautiful children, that's bad enough, competition, objectification, etc., but that they were sexualized with makeup and hair and little high heels, and it was pornographic. It was like a pornography of little girls, and there was at that time, the kind of consciousness that you've created was just beginning to glimmer, and I remember being so grateful for it. So this is a chance for me to say publicly and privately at the same time, thank you.
Well, thank you for saying that, and there are a couple of different pieces in laying the groundwork for Spark, and I'd be very happy to talk about what it is we do, but I rarely get a chance to talk about the kind of planfulness that went into seeding it. We have a lot of seeds we still haven't had the opportunity to nurture. One is the notion that the response to sexualization can be twofold, right? One is to protect girls from all the bad stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, horrible stuff, protect them, which frankly just maintains the status quo.
Right.
The second alternative is what we do, which is to involve girls in doing something about the problem, not protecting them from it, but engaging them in the solution.
And you're supplying them with fight-back tools, in effect.
We train them. We train them to talk to the media. We train them to write blogs. They are just finishing a book that will be published by Macmillan for young feminists on how to do feminist activism.
Wow.
And we train them in how to engage in actions, and importantly, how to create community among themselves and how to support each other, which they do beautifully, and they do it online.
Wow.
And then once a year, we bring them together in retreats. A couple other seeds I just wanted to mention. One is male allies. We had male allies at the summit. We had researchers at the summit, because one of the things that distinguishes us is that we're grounded in research.
Right.
Now, there are lots of debates in academic feminism in particular about what sexualization is, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's a way that girls could be expressing their sexuality, and there is evidence that sexualization is problematic psychologically, socially, for society, as well as for individual girls, for men and boys, as well as adult women.
Right, particularly when it doesn't give the little person themselves the chance to define their own.
Exactly.
Well, we've got to go, but you promised that you'll come back and talk to us again, maybe when the book is ready to come out.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being with us on Women's Media Center Live, Deb. Come back soon.
I will. Thanks, Robin.
It's time for another pause. This is Women's Media Center Live, and you know it. Look around. I stubbornly persist in being Robin Morgan. Now, who has a Pulitzer Prize gold medal winner as their senior producer? Answer, Women's Media Center Live with me does, and proud of it. You'll talk with her in just a minute.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 CBS Radio.
Welcome back again. Our last guest is Cristal Williams Chancellor, who is Media Relations Manager for the Women's Media Center. But she has a checkered past. She was an award-winning journalist who spent the bulk of her career in newsroom and project management. In addition, at the Women's Media Center, she is the senior producer for Women's Media Center Live. Welcome, Cristal, to Women's Media Center Live, your own program.
Well, Robin, I am delighted to be here.
Well, I've been wanting to interview you for some time, so it's very nice to have the senior producer of the show on the hot seat, as it were. Let's start with the overall title. But before you were senior producer of Women's Media Center Live with moi, you were already media manager for the Women's Media Center. Let our listeners in on what it is the media manager of something called the Women's Media Center actually does.
I am primarily responsible for helping the Women's Media Center raise the profile of the organization in the media, and that's through television, radio, newspapers, and all the other permeations of media. And this involves, in addition, fostering a positive relationship with the media, working with them on a regular basis so that there is an ongoing relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We have actually an excellent editorial team of communications and social media that we work with directly every day to talk about the issues that are in the media and how we as an organization can make sure that our message, our story, our mission of raising the profile and making women and girls more visible in the media is disseminated.
And what about Women's Media Center Live? Let people in on what it is you as senior producer do.
I am actually work directly with you, Robin, as you know, on getting booking the guests for the show, screening some of the guests, and basically doing some pre-interviews to help get some information about the guests prior to them having a live discussion with you.
Mm-hmm.
We have regular radio meetings on Mondays, which we kind of hash out some of the shows, talk about ideas, who some of the guests might be, and what our ultimate message will want to be for that particular Saturday. Generally a very lively and engaging discussion in which everyone gets a chance to have their voice. And in the end, I think we come up with a show that listeners connect with and also are entertained by.
I want to say, though, publicly that Cristal wins the Intrepid Stubborn Pursuit Award week after week after the Hero Worker Award, because when a guest seems hopelessly ungettable, or our little radio show has had guests who less than 24 hours before have been on Rachel Maddow or on the 6 o'clock news, and here they are on us, and it's because of Cristal.
Oh, thank you, Robin. I'm flattered by that. And I will attribute that to my years of being a reporter and being an editor in the newsroom, because those qualities were important in terms of trying to get a story and making sure that you met your deadline. So I bring that from my years of experience in newspapers.
I want to talk about that, in fact, and who you were before the Women's Media Center was lucky enough to have you working with us on our team. You were part of the team at the Akron Beacon Journal that won the 1994 Pulitzer Prize Gold Medal for Meritorious Public Service for a year-long series. That's amazing, focusing on race relations in Akron. And you also have won awards from the Associated Press. Tell us a little bit about your own journalism career and how you got started in journalism.
I began my career actually when I was in high school, and my high school English teacher had thought I was a good writer and suggested I work for the newspaper, which I did, and later became the editor of the newspaper. And I liked the idea of learning new things and talking to new people, and just opening up new horizons. And so I went to the University of Maryland for 4 years, graduated from there, worked for Small Daily on the Eastern Shore of Maryland for a couple of years, and then later spent most of my career at the Akron Beacon Journal, which you just mentioned. But the Question of Color, the Pulitzer Prize-winning series you just mentioned, was one of the things I am most proud of. It was, as you mentioned, a year-long endeavor, and where we looked very intently at race relations in Akron, particularly, both in terms of education, politics, government, police, courts, and really did an in-depth look at how people were relating to each other and where some of the growth areas were.
Wow. So this was like a 360-degree examination of a subject in depth.
It was, and we received a lot of positive feedback from the community. And as a result, I think one of the things that we did well with the series was at the end, we left open a dialogue so that people could come together and talk about the solutions that were identified in the series. And I think as a result, race relations in Akron, Ohio are better than they were when before the series began.
Wow, that is something very much to be proud of. That's awards aside, Pulitzer aside, that has a lasting impact. And then you also, prior to coming to the Women's Media Center, you were almost 12 years at the American Society of News Editors. Tell us about the society and what you did there.
I went to ASNE after my years in the newsroom, and I was looking for a place that would be a nice transition where I would have the opportunity to look at the industry in a broader way, because while I was at individual newspapers, you tend to have a tunnel vision of looking at that particular newspaper. And ASNE allowed me to look at the industry as a whole and to address some of the issues and concerns that were happening. And it was during a time where the industry was undergoing a lot of changes because, people were shifting from newspapers as a primary source of their information to online media, and that was having a pretty large impact on what was happening with newspapers. And so at ASNE, I managed a number of projects, both building credibility with newspapers and talking to people about diversity and what that meant to not just to democracy, but also to the credibility of newspapers as a whole.
It makes for such a well-rounded career in journalism. I mean, you've seen the macro and done the micro.
I have, and I feel as though I'm honored to have that history and to bring all of that experience and knowledge to the Women's Media Center. And it just seemed as though that the opportunity at the Women's Media Center was perfect in terms of where I was in my career and what I thought that I could bring to the organization, founded by you, Robin, of course, and Jane Fonda and Gloria Steinem, obviously very impressive people and who have a deep history in the women's movement. And I was very much impressed with that and wanted to be part of that and to make a contribution to that movement. It's
only been something like 8 years since the idea for this was a gleam in our six eyes, the three of us, Gloria, Jane, and me. And I cannot believe, none of us can believe how far it's come. And that in no small part is due to you and your contributions as well. Who would think that after all of your work in journalism, you would wind up with the Women's Media Center, and also adding yet another skill, that of being senior producer of a radio program. You never know.
You never know. And that was one of actually the things that I really was most happy about was working on the radio show and working with you, Robin, as I tell you regularly, is a joy. But working on the radio allows me to be back in the newsroom because we're always talking about present-day issues and timely issues. And so I just thank you and the Women's Media Center for the opportunity.
Well, we do have fun doing this because sometimes we'll be able to plan shows weeks in advance, and we always congratulate ourselves. And then, of course, current events turn everything upside down, and Cristal has sometimes, I think the record was recently when she had to fly into action, and a guest had laryngitis, and within an hour had to book a guest for replacement. So sometimes these are planned in advance, sometimes we dash around crazily, but we laugh a lot. We do.
Yes, we do. We have fun doing it.
That's very important, I think. So thank you for being with us, with yourself and the rest of us.
Well, thank you for having me as a guest.
Sometimes it's necessary to revisit the same subject with fighting words all over again. Since the Pope Francis recently said some civil words even about atheists, but still would not budge, of course, on the issue of reproductive rights, I thought it'd be interesting to revisit the history of the Roman Catholic Church's position, from which, by the way, all current U.S. anti-choice extremist Christian positions derive. It's not what you think. Today's Vatican finds even the words reproductive health unacceptable in official UN documents, in case anybody might construe them to include the already undeleted word abortion. But the Catholic Church opposition to abortion was not always quite so absolute. It was only in 1869 that abortion at any stage was made subject to automatic excommunication. This had to do with the Church's position on sexuality, not respect for fetal life. The Church pretends that it has an absolute position that's been unchanged for 2,000 years. In fact, the Church's position has varied continually over the course of history. In 400 CE, Christian era, Augustine expressed the then mainstream view that early abortion required penance only for the sexual aspect of the sin, not as homicide. 800 years later, Thomas Aquinas substantially agreed. Between 1198 and 1216, Pope Innocent III ruled abortion as, quote, not irregular if the fetus was not vivified or animated. Animation was considered 80 days for a female and 40 days for a male, though it wasn't explained how anyone could tell the difference in the womb. Pope Sixtus V forbade all abortions in 1588, but in 1591 Pope Gregory XIV rescinded the order, re-establishing permission to abort up to 40 days for both a male or female fetus. Saint Antoninus, Archbishop of Florence, a 15th century Dominican who wrote a major treatise on abortion, taught that early abortion to save a woman's life was moral. And Thomas Sanchez, a 17th century Jesuit, noted that all his Catholic theologian contemporaries justified abortion to save the life of the woman. It was only in 1869, the 19th century, that Pius IX ruled all abortion murder and defined it as an excommunicable sin. Some scholars argue that this edict was issued under pressure from Napoleon III, concerned that the birth rate had been dropping and France might face a serious depletion of soldiers for wars and colonizations. Furthermore, and also contrary to popular belief, the prohibition of abortion is not governed by claims of papal infallibility, which means there's room for discussion and it can be changed. And that's it for this week. You've been listening to what they call the talk show with a brain on CBS station WJFK, 1580 AM radio, and on the web at WMClive.com, which has podcasts of previous shows, all of them, and has a link to iTunes where you can also listen or download or subscribe to the show. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter, too. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Views expressed here do not represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. WMC President and for this program Executive Producer Julie Burton, Senior Producer Cristal Williams Chancellor, and our founding sponsor Regina Kulik-Scully. I'm Robin Morgan. Thanks for being with us. Join us next week for our formal fall premiere with a show that will knock your socks off. What does that mean anyway, socks? Anyway, it's like WMC Live 2.0, with Dee Dee Myers joining us from the Clinton inner circle and confiding what she believes about whether Hillary will run. Only here on Women's Media Center Live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 CBS Radio and WMCLive.com. Talk radio with a brain.